The archetypal lovers, Venus and Mars, they're meeting up, conjoining in Aquarius, and that's happening not just for a few days. It sets the whole entire cycle for Mars-Venus relations, for the entire time until they meet again. So it's a synodic cycle for Mars and Venus things. And it's going to not happen again. It changes in 2026. They meet in different times, sometimes once a year, sometimes twice a year. In February of 2022, they met up in Capricorn at 16 degrees 53 seconds. And then only 1 month later, get this, they met up again and reset the whole cycle. They're like, no, not Capricorn. We're doing this in Aquarius. And guess where it was? Yes, it was 0 degrees Aquarius. Why is that significant? Because everything's happening in 0 degrees Aquarius. That's where Pluto is hanging out for quite some time. That's also where the Mars-Saturn happened in 2020. The Jupiter-Saturn conjunction happened in 2020. Add this to the list. We've already had Mars and Venus together setting in Aquarius at that 0 degree. And now they're setting up again in a different degree. We'll talk about that in the Sabian symbol in a minute to see if we can get some more information drawn out of it. And that is important because it's a continuation of the story. The thing is weird though, is they did come through this almost PTSD type experience with Pluto. They both just met up in that same degree where they last conjoined with Pluto. The way I see it is they're not in this ecstatic union in Aquarius because there's a detachment in a way from emotionality and that kind of passion. There's a little detachment there. But also they just went through that Pluto portal. There's this scene in the Hunger Games where Katniss is one of the main characters and Peeta is the boy character. They both are in the Hunger Game and they find each other after this horrible night of everybody, dying or whatever. And they both find each other and they're both alive and they meet up and they're like, oh my gosh, you're okay, what's your situation? The other one's like, yeah, I'm okay, what's your situation? And they compare notes. Anyway, that's kind of the way I'm seeing Mars and Venus here. There's going to be more of the same, maybe at a next level. I see in the last 2 years, there's been a lot more technology for AI. There was a story I shared about a lady who fell in love with a chatbot and married him online, not like legally or anything, but I think that's going to increase. So as the increase of technology is exponential, they can make things so much better, so much more quickly. They are probably going to be doing these deep fake kind of relationships. So you could probably pick anybody you want to have as your partner, have maybe a relationship with, I don't know, Elvis from 1956. Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia, whatever, I don't know, whatever floats someone's boat. That's something that I think could increase. The other thing that I think is going to happen is a decrease in technology. One side, super tech, other side, no tech. Dating apps, people are getting wise to that, and the dating app's main concern is to keep people on the app. And so if you find your love, then you're done with the app, and that's not good business. Back in 1959 was actually the first online dating, believe it or not. And it was Happy Family Planning Services. That's what was launched. And it was started by Jim Harvey and Phil Fillier, a class project for Stanford. And it was using a questionnaire on an IBM 650 that they matched 49 men and 49 women. So it started way back. By the 1980s, there were more like pen pals, those matchmakers and those video dating. Have you ever seen those? Some of those are so funny.
Hi, I'm Fred. Hi, my name's Mike, and if you're sitting there watching this tape smoking your cigarette, well, hit the fast forward button.
Really ridiculously funny.
Hi, Mom.
In the 90s, 1995, that's when Match.com was developed. All of them up to that point were mainly about finding your one person. Then something different happened that completely changed the online dating situation. 2012 was when Tinder was launched, and then Hinge 2012, and Bumble in 2014. I know those are the only 3 that I've heard of. But that completely changed the way people met each other and dated. There's a graph here that I'm going to add, and how people meet each other. You can see how quickly up the online dating went and how everything else sort of tanked on that graph. Only 8 to 13% of straight couples and 24% of lesbian, gay, or bisexual couples meet through those platforms. So still, that's a pretty low rate of success. Statistically, it's not that good. The design is not to help people find their partner and keep a partner. It's to continue the loop of looking and looking and looking, and the grass is always greener kind of thing. The timeline. I found an article published November 11th, 2023, and it was in Newsweek. It was called "Dating Apps Are Struggling, Here's Why." People have found that they prefer meeting people in person more than browsing profiles on the phone. Dustin Sitar, the CEO of Groom Club, told Newsweek. The issues when it comes to dating apps are really widespread, it says. Women often report feeling overwhelmed by the sheer abundance of less than stellar matches, while men sometimes complain that they rarely get a reply or even a match. With the apps built to allow you to swipe away potential suitors, ghosting has also become common. They've reshaped the dynamics of modern romance, making it easier to meet people outside of the immediate social circles. However, they're also responsible for accelerating casual dating and hookup culture, which has led to negative emotional consequences for some users. On a more amusing note, these apps have turned us into human versions of Goldilocks, always searching for someone who's just right. But this constant swiping can lead to dating app fatigue and burnout. In 2023, they did a survey of 1,000 US college and graduate students, and they found that 79% of them did not use dating apps. So that's an improvement, I think, personally. Of course, I have no experience with it, so take that with a grain of salt. Either way, in my experience with reading people's charts, meeting people, just being a human on Earth, observation, I can tell that relationships are not easy right now. They're hard to find, they're hard to keep, they're hard to understand, and they're hard to even tolerate for a lot of people. It's just been a strange iteration, and Mars and Venus in Aquarius can bring some balancing elements, hopefully, in this second version of it. And so some people are going to go all in with the AI chatbots, and maybe that's satisfying. I really don't have a judgment on it. It could be for somebody. I don't know. And others are going to completely turn away from technology, and that's okay too. The next question is what degree and what does it mean? It happens at 6 degrees 57 seconds of Aquarius, and that Sabian symbol Aquarius 7, a child born of an eggshell. A child born of an eggshell. I can't get away from the egg. Get away from the egg. At least it's not an egg sack. I like this better. Here's what James Burgess says. Dramatic changes occur when entirely new mutations break the traditions of the past. Ancestral wisdom drives our evolutionary processes by which very slowly, over generations, our race develops higher consciousnesses. Yet another development process is also at play, whereby a quantum shift can occur. A revolutionary mutation that catapults us into a new awareness very suddenly, and we're no longer bound up in our old ways and the limited understandings that we once had. We can create inspired and new realities. A child being born out of an egg. That reminds me of the child that Mars and Venus have in mythology, Aphrodite and Ares, and their child is named Eros. Now, the Greeks had 5 words for love, 5 completely different types of love. But Eros is, one that is very interesting to humans. It's very tantalizing and intriguing, and that's where the word erotic comes from. It's something that the Greek people believe that it's more than maybe what you think of erotic in the first spark of idea you have. It's different than that. The Greeks believed that Eros was understood to drive for people to come together and meet and have passion, which is so beautiful, but also to transcend themselves as a singular entity, to provide the urge for union, relatedness, a drive that is going to actually take you somewhere higher, take you to a union with God, a truth that's beyond what you can get to by yourself. Eros is drawing us onward, but it refers to possibilities. It's not just the one thing. It's no longer Eros if it's coming from a place of selfish satisfaction. Eros just doesn't hang out. Like, I'm out of here. And that's what happens with that app, where the Goldilocks thing, where people become more of a commodity than actual humans, and swipe on and ghosting and all that unkindness. So here's a prediction. In the next couple years, I think that dating apps are just going to continue to tank. The AI stuff's probably going to go up, but the dating apps are going to go down. And people may be starting to see the value in meeting and having relationships that have sustained humanity over, pretty much the whole entire evolution of humanity. And love is pretty new. It's a really new thing to consider. It hasn't really been part of relationships until quite recently. This is the book I wanted to share with you. It's Person to Person Astrology by Stephen Arroyo. And it's all about Venus and Mars. It's called Energy Factors in Love, Sex, and Compatibility. It's specific, and it goes through all the signs, Venus and Mars in the signs, and then the compatibility of how they are. Like if you do a combined chart or something like that, or if you want to know if you have synastry with someone else in a romantic situation. In this book, there's a quote that he takes from Theodore Zeldin's book, An Intimate History of Humanity, and I thought this was really telling. For most of history, love has been considered a threat to the stability of the individual and society, because stability was usually valued more highly than freedom. In the 1950s, still only 1/4 of engaged couples in America were head over heels in love. So that's 75% that were like meh in the 50s. And in France, less than 1/3 of all women claimed to have experienced a grand amour. 40 years later, half of those French women were complaining that the men in their lives were not romantic enough, and they wished they would at least say, "I love you," more often. Their general view is that modern life makes an amorous passion more difficult than in the past, but the golden age never existed. In despair, many of them say they feel more passionately about animals and sports than about people. In Russia, at the dawn of the glasnost, even amongst newlyweds, love came in only 5th in the list of 18 reasons to get married. This means that passion is an art that people have yet to master. 5th out of 18 reasons. I mean, yeah, think about that. What are reasons 1 through 4? Number 5 was love. So there's 18 reasons. Continuing on with the quote, he says, "This means that passion is an art that people have yet to master, that love is an unfinished revolution." How about that for an Aquarian concept? Love is an unfinished revolution. Most of history sounds like, love hasn't been part of the story for the most part, and stability was more valued than freedom. But if we think about what Aquarius is about, it is about freedom. Aquarius is a freedom space. Maybe we can take that concept and add in a balance of freedom and love and passion and a detachment from all of the things that we might think we want or need at that level of 100. I say this to people and people don't like it, but if you have a 70%, and that doesn't sound great, but if you have a 70% happiness rate with a partner, that's grading on the curve. It's really a lot to ask somebody to fill you up 100%. It's a lot because somebody might be asking you to fill them up 100%, and it's difficult. It's difficult. That's what friends are for. That's what community is for. That's what your hobbies are for. That's what your differences and explorations on your own are for. That's some freedom that can be built into a relationship that brings a whole new level of experience together, letting there be some Aquarian freedom in order to build bonds together. What are Venus and Mars like when they're in Aquarius? There is a lot of flirtiness for Venus in Aquarius. It's a flirtiness that's intelligent. It's about ideas. It makes you think. It's a little unconventional, experimental. Try new things, a little fantastical, fantasy, some appreciation for beauty that's built into ideas. Mars in Aquarius has this initiative to have a lot more freedom of expression. Physical connections for Mars. Mars rules physical connections in the way of passion, and that's stimulated by experimentation, excitement of new possibilities, new ideas, being free. Now, where do they meet again in 2026? Capricorn. I think that's going to be an even stronger move towards a more, what's the word? Old-fashioned, respectable, technology-free, having relationships be more than self-fulfillment, making a little more old-fashioned in the material world and in the airy digital world. I like you just the way you are, and I'll talk to you soon.